There was a man back in the early 1900s, in the early 1920s, who was an adventurer. He was a mountain climber, and he was bent on climbing to the top of Mount Everest. And they asked him, why in the world would you do something so crazy as to try to climb to the top of Mount Everest? And he said, because it's there. I think that that was probably about the best answer anybody could give, and I really, really love that answer. And I think what it does is it so much sums up the human sense of adventure. It's something we all need, that sense of excitement. We need that drive to just conquer stuff and to explore. And it's what keeps us learning. It's what keeps us advancing and progressing forward. And I think that it is something that we as humans desperately, desperately need. I think without that element, with just that simple of why do you want to do that? Of just being like, because I can, or because I think I can, because it's there. Why do you want to try to go to the moon? Like, why do you want to go to Mars? It's like, because it's there, because we can, and you always learn things when you do that. Somebody looking at that man may have been, what's the point? But you know what? We learned a lot of things, even in science, by them attempting to and then eventually climbing Mount Everest. This man, Mallory, that said that actually ended up dying on his second attempt to climb to the top of Mount Everest, and he did that knowing what the risks would be, because at the time people didn't even know if humans could climb that high and survive. They really had no idea of what it would do to the human body. They really didn't know what it was going to do to them once they reached those heights. He never did make it to the top. He ended up dying. That was in the early 20s, and they didn't climb to the top of Mount Everest till the 1950s, approximately, roughly 30 years after this man's final attempt. And his first attempt, I think they lost 7 people in his expedition, and then he ultimately, along with at least one other person, also ended up dying in their second attempt. But you could sit there and say, well, it serves them right. What in the world? Why would you try to do that anyways? But this is the crazy part with people that have a sense of adventure like that. If he never would have tried it, he could have very easily been just as defeated mentally and physically, and almost died on the inside if he would not have been allowed to attempt to climb that mountain. Had circumstances, or a law or a country said, we're not going to let you do that, you're not allowed to, the risk is too high, if they would have done that to him, it probably would have killed him, and it could have very easily killed him physically as well. Somebody with a very huge sense of adventure like that, well, if they're not allowed to pursue their passions, will normally pursue something else, and it can very well be destructive. It could have been something as straightforward as suicide. Maybe it would have been alcohol, could have been drugs. Maybe he would have gotten into, well, if I can't do that, I'm going to go try to be the fastest man on earth, and killed himself on a motorcycle. You just never know. There's a lot of people that I think now are losing that drive and that sense of adventure, and that is ultimately probably a large part of the reason why we are so depressed as a society. We just have people who are going 9 to 5 every day, going to work, going home, and they are just can't stand life right now. And you could be like, but you've got everything you want. You've got a family, you've got a house, you've got a fridge full of food. But in all practical purposes, like, we can't all be mountain climbers. We can't all be astronauts. We can't all be submariners, so we can't necessarily physically go explore a lot of areas anymore. There are still vast stretches of wilderness out there for explorers to go get their sense of adventure. But for your average chubby, upper 30s dude, what are you going to do? And, maybe that's why I am chubby. But what are we going to do? I did have my sense of adventure. Back in my 20s and everything, where I went and did my thing, I actually was rather adventurous, and I went and did a lot of things for my age. But now, it's kind of like I've got a family, I've got obligations, so is there something like, do we have a good definition of adventure, but do we also need to broaden our horizons on what we can actually go explore? And I think that's where I'm at right now, is that I want to explore why is our society structured the way that it is right now. Governments, religion, why do we pursue things like computers and cell phones and cars and houses? Obviously houses, basic shelter, but why do we feel like success is what it is? Why do we need to do the 9 to 5 to survive? Is it because we have been always have been taught this, or is it because that's actually what needs to happen? Like, and some of these, even though we might not like them, might be a necessity, but then there may be some of them that, well, we just think they're a necessity because we don't know any better. We've never tried. We haven't put our best minds to trying to break out of this cycle. I think that's really where I feel I am really, really drawn to this. I believe that my previous beliefs on the way that I was raised, religiously, politically, and everything, I think all of those things came together to really stifle my imagination. And I feel like I have finally been able to kind of shed those. I've been able to shed my preconceived religious beliefs. I've been able to shed my ideas on, nationalism, exceptionalism through nationalism and through religion. I've been able to kind of, get rid of some of those ideas, and I think that because I've been able to do that, I am a lot more open-minded now, to the point where I can maybe actually start exploring some of these other areas. That was really bright. I did not mean to make it like that. But I think that we can get a sense of adventure out of that, because right now we feel like, as a human species, our explorations, we said, for a while, like, Alaska was the last true frontier, and then we started going into space, and then space is the last frontier, and, where we're like, we've reached the limits of our exploration. Now we need to go out from the planet and start looking at faraway planets and stuff, which is fine. Like, I actually think those things are wonderful, and I think we need to continue to do that. I would love to see another man or woman, another person, get put on the moon. I would like to see somebody walking on Mars. I would like us to reach the deepest parts of the ocean and explore more of the ocean. I want to see all of those things, I would love to see, I don't know, some type of holographic television rather than having to have an actual TV up there, whatever. Like, I love that type of exploration, that type of advancement. But I think for the average person like me, who does the 9 to 5, that sense of adventure can be gone so easily, because it's like, well, what do we do? You end up trying to live this out through other people. But I think that we have taken our eyes off of some very essential places to expand on. We have lost sight of developing in other areas. So, and some for very good reason. I think there's a wide number of reasons. Sometimes certain entities don't want you to explore further in certain areas. I mean, like governments, they're going to want to be there. People have had governments since pretty much the establishment of civilization. Religion, the same thing, and neither one of them are going to want to go away. And now, I am not a person who believes that an anarchist. I'm not an anarchist. And I'm also not one who doesn't believe in spirituality, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that it seems like the longer we go on right now, that we are fighting really hard to prop up governments and religion in a way that we shouldn't have to. I feel like governments and religions that can't stand on their own 2 feet and actually support the people around them, then they're not worth having. So it's not necessarily that we might not need government. It's maybe we have a wrong idea of what it's supposed to be. Maybe it's not that we don't need, well, I don't really think we need religion, but maybe we still need spirituality. I think that's kind of a necessity for us, but maybe we have the wrong concept of what that is. And once again, some of it may be there because it has to be, but maybe some of it is there just simply because we haven't explored other options. And, just sitting there and saying, well, we've explored other options because this and this country has tried socialism, and this country over here tried to outlaw religion, and this country over here was communist, and none of it worked, and we still find ourselves in the same predicament. And to that, I would say that's not what I mean. Like, those systems are still very much similar to everything else around them. So even if you go from a democratic republic with capitalism, you can go to a communist country with socialism, and you still have to go over there and do the 9 to 5. Okay? The way that your resources get distributed might be different, but the way you get the resources are still the same. If you need iron ore out of the ground, it's still going to have to be mined. But what I'm talking about is, like, for our general survival, we believe that we have to go waste away at some boring job in order for us to survive. Well, is that really what we have to do? Religion, you even look at how we have almost always, in large, always thought of God or gods, plural or whatever, as being distant, being out there somewhere, sitting in heaven on a heavenly throne, like they're just kind of out there. Well, that is a very ancient thought process. But is that really how it is? If, I personally feel, and I might be wrong about this, I know that there are atheists out there who have given pretty much everything a shot in their mind of what is possible, and they are atheistic against everything. They just don't believe that there is any deity out there. There's no higher power whatsoever. Very good people, and I would say that I would still agree with them a lot more than I do fundamental religions. However, I also find most atheists, and this isn't a slam against atheists, that most would still be atheistic against a Zeus or Yahweh type of God because that is all they've ever known. I'm not saying that there is another higher power out there, but maybe we need to consider, hey, take the boxes off. Like, destroy everything that you've known previously about religion, about spirituality, and then think of if there is another higher power out there around us, among us, in us, wherever, what would that look like? And does it need to be viewed as a supreme being? Does it need to be viewed as a Zeus, as a Yahweh, as a anything like that we've known in the past? Can it just be an energy? Can it just be a power? Can we have that same divinity in us? And where would you stop with it? Does it go off into animals? Does it go off into trees and the far stretches of the universe? Or, and it might sound crazy, but are we on the earth the equivalent of an atom in one of our cells, where our planet is just one of the little electrons and protons or whatever of a cell that is our galaxy? And what is beyond the universe? Is that part of something bigger and we just don't know it because we're too small? We haven't explored those dimensions yet. And that's going off into crazy stuff, but that's all things that we need to start considering, in my opinion, because I think that we've been too trapped and our imagination has been held captives by our current systems and structures and religions and economies and governments, that we haven't allowed our imaginations to go run free. We've been too busy being nationalistic and trying to prop up a democratic republic as the answer to the world's problems, and have been fighting so hard for that we forgot our humanity, that we forgot our imagination, that we forgot to explore humanity and our existence the way that we should be. And we haven't advanced quickly enough in these areas, I don't believe. Not in the way that we have in some of these other areas. And quantum physics may be getting into some of that stuff, but I think that we need to take all of our knowledge and we need to start a discussion globally among all walks of life to see what is really possible, how we live, our governments, borders. A lot of the times you cannot, create war against another nation unless you somehow feel superior to them and you make them, in your mind and into the people who are going there to fight and do the dirty work, they almost have to look at the people that they are opposed to, the people that they are fighting. You have to almost look at them as something less than you. You almost have to look at them as subhuman. You have to look at yourself as exceptional. And the way that we do that, and I think the way that we have almost always done it, is saying that our group, our nation, our ethnicity is superior to yours. And the same thing, you normally can also justify that with religion. So you've got nationalistic ideas and you've got religious ideas coming together, holding each other up, making you feel superior. You've got, a God or a power that is telling you that you're special, you live in a special nation. Just because you live in these imaginary borders on a map, you are now better than the next people, and you even have certain laws that apply to you. I can be within this fence right on the border and I get special rights to somebody 3 feet away from me that's on the other side of the fence, literally just because I'm on this side of the fence. Now, that's also not saying that I have the answers to things. That's not to say that no borders are necessary. I'm not even saying that. Maybe they're not necessary, but maybe they are. But if we continue to look at each other as something different, just because you're on the other side of the border, that's where the problems begin. So if we are going to keep borders and everything and nations and governments, then we have to start rethinking what they mean and what they're supposed to do. If we keep looking at each other through the filter of a border, almost like if you have a chain link fence there, and you're looking at somebody through that chain link fence, it kind of clouds your vision, it filters things out. We have to stop looking at through people through the filter of borders when we look at people, because it is destroying us, and we are going and doing crazy things and dominating and taking advantage of other people to try to make our own nation better, to try to live in prosperity over here, but at the expense of these people over here. And I think that I can do it. Because I live in this country and because my religion makes me special. And I've got the blessing from my God and our government and my people group, my race, my nationality makes me better than these people over here. And that's why I can do that. And we need to get away from that. And we need to start thinking and exploring the ways that we can get out of that. And I think that's where I'm at right now. That's everything that I can pretty much think about nowadays. That's what I want to focus my energy on. And I am going to try to write a book about this. And I'm going to put videos up here of kind of this journey. Maybe it's not going to interest anybody. Maybe nobody will watch it. I don't know. I don't really care, because I at least have to try, because I don't want to sit here 10 years, 15 years, or on my deathbed wondering what would have happened if I would have actually pursued my passion. It may turn into nothing, but you know what? It may turn into something as well. You never know unless you do it, and I'm going to try. So that's kind of where I am, and I hope that there's other people out there who are willing to join me.